This is gonna be a messy one. Oh, I'm talking. Okay, the camera's on, and it's time. It is time to actually formally talk about coming out of burnout. And I feel like fireworks just went off in my chest talking about that, actually. Putting it actually into words and sitting down and formally like trying to express the fact that, yeah, finally, after almost 1.5 to 2 years of struggling under the exhaustion and the depression and the way the world just was getting more and more gray and sad, I am finally coming up and out of that pit of burnout. And I think it is so important to talk about how I am here now and how I got there now. Because in the last several months, the last 7 months in particular, I have thrown pretty much everything I had into trying to research the subject of what is burnout? What is creative burnout? Why am I so sad all the time? Why am I so miserable all the time? This is my dream. I have a dream home. I have a dream partner. I have a dream job. Why am I so miserable all the time? And I threw everything I had into trying to understand what burnout is, how you cope with it, how you get out of it. And the answers were not helpful. They were kind of like those ads you see on Instagram where they talked about like catchphrases and motivation and just take time for yourself. It'll come back, delegate your duties, and you'll feel better. It just sounded like nobody was actually talking about what I was going through. Nobody was actually really talking about burnout. And I found a few definitions along my way. One of the best definitions that actually helped trigger my line of thought that has led to finally coming up out of this pit was actually by a YouTube psychologist named, not like a psychologist of YouTubers maybe, I mean she probably is, but named Katie, who some of you guys have probably seen because she has been doing work with like Sean Dawson and Paul Logan, neither of whom I actually have ever seen a video of or really know about, but I know they're big names, and Jacksepticeye, which a lot more of you guys are going to be more familiar with. She's done a lot of work with him, and actually it was her video with him talking about YouTubers and creative burnout that finally gave me a foothold to be able to figure out what was going on in my life. One of many things actually, but Katie describes burnout as doing the same thing over and over again and getting inconsistent results. And that made a lot of sense. So let's just start there. This is gonna be messy, and I will have future little vlog videos where I'm going to try to unpack this as gently and thoroughly as possible because I have been miserable. I should have had the best last years of my life, right? This should have been some of the peak happiest times. And I look back on the last year, and only in the last 3 months have I finally started to actually remember sunlight. Only in the last 3 months do I actually have a functional memory of what I did and what was happening. That is how severe it has been for so long in my life. So I will be unpacking the concept of how burnout has affected me. I will be unpacking how I've gotten out of it in future videos, but this is going to be the messy thing where I'm just spilling out whatever comes and formally saying I'm coming out of it because I want to share so many other adventures and so much else with you guys, and I haven't been able to because I feel like I have to do this first. This is important. This may be one of the more important things I've ever done, to have experienced something so painful and hard, and now to be able to speak of it and maybe help others. That's important. So that comes first, and all the walks in the woods and sharing the fun little trinkets I've been getting at my house and the recipes we've been trying will come later. And I'm really looking forward to that too. But coming back to burnout, the basic idea that I think fits the most for what I experienced, and everybody probably experiences this differently, just like everyone experiences anxiety and depression differently, burnout is a form of those things, I feel. It belongs in the same category, and it belongs with the same level of seriousness, especially the longer it lasts and the more significant of an impact it can have on your life. And doing the same thing over and over again and getting a different result is going to make you feel pretty anxious. It's either going to hack your dopamine system and get you addicted, just like gambling does, pulling that lever in a gambling like casino and letting the little numbers line up, doing the same thing over and over again and getting different results, inconsistent results, hacks your dopamine system, hacks your addictive cycle, and makes you want to participate in it. But if you keep doing that and you don't get any rewards from it, eventually you'll get burned out. And you can be burned out and still addicted to what you're doing. And I think that's kind of what happened to me, because creating videos, especially through video games and storytelling, is something that I love to do. It's a personal passion. It fills me on a creative level when it's good and healthy and everything's going well, in a way that I think an artist of some kind needs. And if you're really into art, or you're really passionate about something, anything that you can kind of say, yeah, that's my passion, you know what I'm talking about. Without that, you just feel like you're missing something. Like you haven't put on all your clothes before you leave the house. That kind of something's missing. But with YouTube is exactly that. You do more or less the same thing, upload a video over and over and over and over again, and you will get inconsistent results. You don't get rewarded consistently for what you create on YouTube. YouTube is not like a job where you go to work and you're at the cashier register and you're doing your job as a cashier and you get paid $7.25 an hour, which hopefully you guys get paid more than that by now, but that's what I used to make at the peak of minimum wage back then. So you get paid that, and you know to expect the exact consistent results. It doesn't really matter most days what kind of mood you go to work in. It doesn't really matter how busy it is or what goes on. You show up, you put in 1 hour, you get $7. And that is the way work works for a lot of people, for most people, I think. And when you are a artist who lives off of what you do, you have the same sort of fluctuation of consistency. Art world is completely different, and I do think YouTube is a form of art because you're producing something that you know, consumers will take, but we'll get into that in just a second. Basically, in the art world, you might have an ebb and a flow of number of commissions or number of sales that you have, but you, in a good, theoretically good world, say your commissions are pretty consistent and you keep your prices pretty consistent. So we always know that one commission might equal $70 perhaps. And the ebb and the flow, the stress, where you can already start seeing where burnout could start happening, is that you may not have enough people to sell your commissions to. So that's always a pressure there in like the little art world, just keeping things really generic. And then you get into the YouTube realm of things, which is where you start getting into the completely inconsistent rewards. With YouTube, you create a video. It could be identical to a last like you create a video, you upload it, super popular. It gets 100,000 views, awesome. You get $20 for it. You're like, yes, wow, that's so cool. I put this together and I upload a video. It got 100,000 views. I got $20. That's really awesome. And that's cool. So you make a second video. Say that it turns out to be just as popular as the first one. 100,000 views. And because you put it out on a snowy day in January, you get $2. Wait a second. You produced the exact same product, a YouTube video. They got the exact same number of views, 100,000. One got $20, one got $2, because of forces completely out of your control, completely out of your ability to predict, completely out of your ability to be warned about, to know about ahead of time, and that is the ad cycles. You don't really know. You know that Christmas is awesome. You know that more people watch more videos, so you'll probably get more views in summer, but you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. There's big businesses that are gathering their data and trading that information and buying ads at different rates every day. You have no idea if that video that you got is going to earn you 2 cents, $2, $20. You have no idea. No matter how popular a video is, that never correlates into the exact same amount of money, which is how you survive later on. So YouTube is by definition built so that you will put in the same consistent results and you will get different results, or the same video, different results every time. And that can lead to burnout. That's number one of what I think really leads to burnout, especially among YouTubers. There's no consistency. I don't think that is a flaw in the system personally. I know a lot of people feel very strongly about that. They feel YouTube should be doing something about this. I don't think so. I think it's similar to going to busk in a park, basically. I'm going with my, let's say I play the cello, which I always wish I could have learned how to do. I go and I take my cello to the park and I set up at a familiar spot and I play songs that have proven to be successful in the past, but not that many people are here today for some reason. It could be snowy, it could be that there's a different big event going on. It could be just that people don't have as much time to see things because there's finals or something. So I don't get as many people coming and watching my cello performance, and I don't get as much money from their views that way. That to me is how YouTube works. I am given the opportunity to use this platform as a park that I show up in and that I perform in. I can't control almost anything about what happens here, anything about what results I get from YouTube, other than the fact that I show up and I play my cello. I show up and I produce videos. So that is how I feel about YouTube. I have long since accepted that there is no control over the money that comes from it. There's no consistency. It can change so drastically over time. It can change because of things way beyond my forces, like the huge drop in revenue that has never ever recovered for me last year when there was that big PewDiePie issue. Remember that? Where all the advertisers tried to pound their chest and pretend they were going to pull off YouTube so they could renegotiate lower ad costs? Well, I have never seen a recovery from that, and it's like by the skin of my teeth can I hold on to making sure I keep a somewhat consistent revenue from YouTube. Since then, I'm not angry about that. That's not what led to my burnout, actually. It led to a lot of stress. But it took me a long time to realize the inconsistent nature of YouTube is not what led to my burnout. What led to my burnout was disappointing people. And that is where it hurts still. It's still tender talking and thinking about it. But what led to me burning out was the same concept, producing the same product, a YouTube video, and getting inconsistent results in people's happiness. And that's where we start getting into completely personal realm of burnout and me that I don't think is going to be the same for anybody else, but might be the similar enough story to maybe help somebody. So for me, I burned out because I was so sad I kept disappointing people. And you may go, how are you disappointing people, Seri? Well, look at my YouTube comments on the main channel. And you will find about half of them, I'm not even joking, about half of them on every single video, no matter what video I put out, no matter how much work went into it, no matter if it was something people were requesting or not, half of all of my comments are, where is this? Where's Niche? Where's Warrior Cats? Where's Farmville 2? You haven't played that for 3 years, but I'm still waiting. You'll see comments like that. And when I see those, I feel like I'm getting better, but I felt very extremely like I let somebody down. And let's back up a little bit and look at why would I look at a random YouTube comment from somebody in my community. It sounds very weird saying it out loud after all. It sounds like something trivial, something easy just to brush off, and feel I disappointed someone to the point where it happened again and again and again so much that I became severely depressed and burned out. Why would that happen? Well, we're gonna get into one of the 3 top things that actually has helped me come out of my burnout now, and that's personal boundaries. Until recently, I didn't really have any personal boundaries. And that's gonna sound really weird. It may explain why I'm a YouTuber. It may explain why I'm fine with sharing my heart and soul and to the world, the universe at large. But I want to start there, and I promise all of this is cohesive and will come together in the end. But until very recently, I didn't really have any personal boundaries. And to put that in terms of how that works with YouTube, that means when people would come to me and they would send me messages, emails, comments, DMs, Patreon messages, fan mail, and say, Seri, thank you so much for making your videos. Your warrior cats videos are getting me through the fact that my parents are divorcing and I'm so sad. Seri, I hate my life. I wish I wasn't alive anymore, but your niche videos get me through it. Seri, I was going to kill myself and give up on everything, but your zoo crafting series inspired me, and you inspire me, and you've convinced me to keep going. So by the way, where's zoo crafting? When you start getting things like that and you have no personal boundaries, and that's overwhelming. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that's what goes on behind the scenes. Yeah, so let's start there. Yeah, those are normal messages. I probably get at least 2 or 3 of those sometimes a week. Lately it's been better. It's only been about 2 or 3 a month. I do get letters from people who have written letters about how no one understands them. I'm the only one who understands them. They love me so much. Their life would be miserable without my adventures. By the way, here's their custom warrior cat. It would mean the world, since you're, you know, my best friend, Seri, if you make this warrior cat in warrior cats for me, because I have nothing else going on in my life and I'm miserable. That's normal for me to get in the mail. And that's one of the reasons I don't do snail mail right now, is because I have had to filter out a lot of things. I've recently had to filter out a few very aggressive letters sent to my P.O. box. Furious that I haven't made more cloud sagas, like really angry red pin capitalization letters. Why am I getting those? We'll get into that later. But that ties into why I do YouTube. And I don't do YouTube because I want to become rich and famous. That has never been my goal. From the very earliest stages of realizing that this could be a thing, which, as those of you who've been around for a while know, I didn't even know that you could make money off of YouTube. A year into doing my videos, I found out by accidentally clicking the activation, like the activation button for AdSense, and I was like, wait, what? So yeah, I didn't know that fame and fortune could be a thing. I don't like fame. I very actively am beginning to kind of hermit a little bit away from the opportunities that would send you out to be in the spotlight in LA, and I'm like, no thank you, I'm not into that. I'm happy with my life here. Fame and fortune don't make me comfortable. They are not things that I want to pursue. But a good person shouldn't disappoint people, right? A good person should be okay with a little bit of self-sacrifice to make others happy. Stop and really think about that for me for just a second. If you're a good person, you don't disappoint people, right? And if you're a good person, you are willing to have a bit of self-sacrifice if it will help someone who is clearly much more miserable than you, right? Seriously, stop and think about that. Do you really feel that a good person can look at someone who says they're so depressed they want to die and turn away from them? Can a good person really look at someone whose parents are constantly fighting and they're bullied at school and turn away from doing the one thing they requested? Can you really do that and still be a good person? Can you really disappoint people and still be a good person? Can you really have the ability in your hands to make someone happy, to fulfill their request for happiness in a life that seems so much more difficult and sad than yours is now, and turn away. Can you really do that? Can you? If you can, you probably have great personal boundaries. If you can't, then you might want to look into getting some, because I didn't. I couldn't turn away from those things. I couldn't turn away from the people who seemed to be in pain that resonated so strongly with when I was in those dark places. I have talked about it before, but it doesn't seem to get into anybody else's head when I speak to people who come to me with these things. I lived in a basement as an agoraphobic hermit for 3 years. I left the house 7 times in 3 years outside. Like 4 of those times were literally just standing on my front porch for like a minute and then going back inside. I escaped a highly abusive relationship that I still have cracks in my bones from. I flunked out of school like 3 times. 3 times I flunked out of university with F's on my transcript and ran from depression. I was homeless when I started my YouTube channel. I know that darkness. I know that darkness. I lived that darkness. I have family with depression. That's never going to go away, and I've had to accept that. And it's horrible to have to accept that the person that you love, no matter what you do, no matter what you try to change in their world, they will never get out of this pit unless they can do it themselves. And you have to just watch and stand by them and do your best. I know that darkness, and for some reason I don't think people get that because they see me happy, they see me smiling. You guys are seeing the fruit and the results of years of my life dedicated to pursuing those exact things. Mercilessly reading through books on the psychology of happiness, how to be happy, how to make myself lose. I lost freaking 100 pounds. I used to weigh like 320 odd pounds, probably more. By that point, you don't want to get on the scale anymore. I lost way more than 100 pounds because I stepped up to that plate of, okay, now we're gonna go on a walk every day. Now we're gonna count my calories. I'm gonna change my life. But you can be really depressed when you weigh that much. I've lived in darkness. I know what it looks like. I know how painful it is. So what right do I have now, happy, successful, living a glorious life surrounded by color and happy things, to turn away from people who come to me and they say that they want to die and zoo crafting is the only thing that helps them? So will I please message them on Twitter every single day, and it would just be such a small thing, and here's a picture of my cat, and we like the same flavor of tea, isn't that awesome? How are you supposed to turn away from those things? Seriously. The answer is with good personal boundaries. And I didn't have those. And so I didn't turn away from the people who came to me. And I didn't want fame and fortune. And at first I thought I could console myself with making so many YouTube videos by going, well, you know, it's not making me more money. I'm not really getting a lot of subscribers compared to like the effort I'm putting in. So I'm not after fame, I'm not after fortune. I want to be after trying to make my community happy. And that was my justification for the work that I did. Especially when I was getting messages, emails, DMs, Discord conversations about the way that somehow this mysterious magic of creating a video was helping people so significantly in lives that were so much more difficult than mine was right now, and had so many memories of those dark places of my life. And so that's where I put all of that energy. Basically went into creating so many videos because I was trying to make people happy, not force them to be happy, but fulfill their request. Everywhere I would turn, I would have a new Twitter message, I would have a new comment asking for this series or that series, and I just didn't really feel you could be a good person and not try to do these things to make people happy. I didn't have any personal boundaries around my time. I didn't have any personal boundaries around my energy, my interest, just the things I wanted to do. It felt too selfish. There were, like last year, I remember it was autumn. I have very bad memories of the last 2 years. I'm so grateful I forced myself to keep my joy journal all this time. because without the joy journal, I would really have lost a lot of the light that was in my life, because I was so caught up in trying to give away my inner energy to all these people who said that they needed it, they needed it, they needed it. And I felt so guilty to be happy that I remember very clearly last year, I was sitting on the porch just for a second, looking at the leaves, and I had a book in my lap that I had been so excited to get. It had finally come out. I wanted to read it. It was from one of my favorite authors. And I was holding the book and I was trying to open it, and I couldn't, because all I could think was, you selfish person, what are you doing sitting on this porch watching the leaves fall when you know perfectly well that you have a Warrior Cats episode to make? How many messages have you gotten from people? What about that little girl who messaged you yesterday and sent you a fan mail message about how her grandmother just died and all she wants is to see a Warrior Cats episode? What are you doing? Someone's grandma died. You remember how much that hurt? You're trying to sit here and read a book? That's what my life was like for the last 2 years, because I didn't have those boundaries. Because I thought to be a good person meant that you needed to do your best to help others. And doesn't that sound logical? Doesn't that sound like that's the way it should work? I needed to do my best to help others. So I would wake up at 8 in the morning and start recording and recording and recording and replying to messages and replying to more messages and recording more, processing, editing, uploading. Now it's 11, now it's 1 in the morning, go to sleep, wake up the next morning and do it all over again. Because I have a beautiful, happy, wonderful life. And how could I stop when there were people messaging me and their lives seemed so much more difficult? It was that over and over again. You can see where it becomes a cycle, hooked on the same thing over and over and over again. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, Seri, they're just comments, but a lot of the people who reached out to me, I don't want to seem like I'm disdainful of them or angry at them. I know a lot of them turned out to be fakers, people who just wanted to manipulate me and manipulate my emotions to get what they wanted. But there were a lot of other people who were in very dark places in a very real way. And now, I would have done things differently. It's not my place. It can't be my place. I don't have the resources, the capacity, or the energy. I don't have what it takes to be what people who are in that place, that darkness, need to get out. I know, because I've been there. And no one could have gotten me out of it but myself. And I would have given everything. And I did follow the wrong people, thinking maybe if I just trail after this person and do whatever they say, eventually they'll show me the way out. And I lost years of my life to not doing it for myself, to trying to find meaning in life and happiness in life and a way out of the darkness by listening to what others would do or following someone around and trying to be their friend. And it didn't work. So now I have the personal boundaries in place to say that's not my place. I'm sorry, that's where you're at. I hope our adventures, the stories I create, can maybe give you a bit of happiness, but it is something you will have to find for yourself, and I hope you have the resources to do so. I have a list of links now to hotlines, and that's the best I can do. And it still feels selfish, but it's better, much better, because I don't have it in me to be able to be that for so many people. And to put it a little bit more in context, because this is a little bit all over the place, I'm gonna just talk about the personal boundaries and what it means to have a fan base and what it means to be a YouTuber, what it means to be a creator, what it means to be a human, what it means to be a good person, and have people who are in dark places reach out to you for help. But to put it in a little bit more context, I want to point out that the people reaching out to me weren't one at a time. I was spending hours a day in multiple conversations on Discord, on Twitter, in email, trying to manage the emotions of so many people. And that sounds so bad, but that's what they wanted me to do. And these people were so sad and so miserable. So, okay, I'll talk to you. Okay, I'll talk to you. Okay, I'll help you. Now I'm on Skype talking to another person who's just having a bad day, and Seri, if you could just maybe hang out with me for a little while, and I have 6 more episodes I need to do, but how could I when these people are reaching out to me and miserable? Or even not on the not miserable days, because now maybe I have a responsibility. They see me as a friend. I should be nice, right? You don't just walk away from somebody and be rude, right? I wanted to be a good person, and that's why I went to that level of effort. And it wasn't just one person at a time. I really, really, really want to emphasize that. It wasn't just one person at a time. And my personal boundaries were so non-existent that there are 3 major events that really, I think, shoved me just right off the cliff into burnout, into feeling like a failure. If my motivation was to create because I wanted to help people be happy, if my motivation was to be a good person, and to be a good person meant that you accepted self-sacrifice so that you could help people who were worse off than you be happy, then every time somebody would email me or leave a comment of, I don't watch you anymore because you let me down, you don't do enough star stable, or every time someone leaves a comment and they're like, but where is niche in an episode of Sims? Or every time someone would leave a comment that would be like, what on earth happened to your Zoo Kitchen series? I loved that. It made me so happy, and nothing else does. Why do you waste your time with all these other episodes? I didn't see it as unreasonable. I didn't see it as, you know, rude. I saw it as, oh, I let them down. I failed. I let them down. I disappointed them. And I disappointed them, and I didn't feel bad because it's not because I wanted people to like me. I felt bad because I wanted people to be happy, and I let them down by not doing the thing they want. Even if there's almost 300,000 of those people now, somehow I didn't have even a smidgen of a personal boundary to go, you know, I don't think you can escape the comments that are going to always request new things and always request old things. It's still overwhelming. I actually feel like my stomach's a little whirlpool right now, trying to explain how stressful it is to feel like you disappointed people when you look in your comment section, and instead of focusing on what was created, or instead of just even talking nicely about the things that you like, hey, this is a really cool Chooky Chicken episode. I like chicken stew. By the way, I love your 101 Dalmatians series, and I can't wait to see it again someday. Instead of looking at it and like, it's very stressful. I can't even articulate yet. I know that that's my own personal burden to bear. Looking at that and being like, I'm doing my best, doing what I want to do, doing what the channel needs for health, doing what it takes to pay my rent. And I need to be able to say that with confidence and have the boundaries to say that and to feel that, and to just be able to brush away those comments. Not out of rudeness, not because I want to be selfish, but because I only have so much time and energy, and I need to have the personal boundaries. You can start seeing where it's already helped me shift my thinking significantly around my energy to protect myself, to take care of myself. And I didn't have that before, because I remember I hardly cooked at all. I love cooking. And last year it was cereal, sandwiches, and freezer meals, because they were fast. Anything that took more than 15 minutes to prepare, I would start freaking out, because that was 15 minutes. I could have almost recorded a whole episode in 15 minutes, and I have so many things to do, and so many people have requested another niche series. Why am I not writing the script for Warrior Cats? Yes, it takes 7 hours, but I should still be doing 10 videos a day to keep up with all the requests. You can see how it spiraled and how it really started getting into some very bad burnout territory. But personal boundaries is one of the biggest things. And there were 3 big events that kind of shoved me face first into burnout that I want to explain to people, because I think a lot of people would be like, why didn't you just sign out? It comes back to the fact I didn't feel that you could be a good person and say, I'm sorry, but no. I didn't feel you could do that. if you're happy and someone is sad, and they're like, hey, if you could just sit with me for 5 minutes, that'd really make my day. Are you a good person if you go, no, sorry, I can't, I need to go make dinner? Like, are you really a good person? Think about that if you do that. And if you disappoint someone, are you still a good person? Do good people disappoint us? I think everyone would be like, yeah, the answer is yes. But none of the role models that we have of good people ever seem to disappoint anyone. And if they do, it was a plot point in some sort of story. Plot twist, they make everybody happy in the end, after all. And that's just food I want to leave with you guys for thought, and something I will talk about later, because I really need to dismantle that more. But do good people disappoint you? I have disappointed so many people. I disappoint people every day by not putting out the things they want. I disappointed so many people who were super close to me and who I really cared about recently. And am I still a good person? I disappointed people by not doing enough or doing what they wanted. Does that still make me a good person? You know, that's where burnout came from, is wondering if I was still a good person if I disappointed people, and not having the personal boundaries to say, hey, I'm here, I'm making these videos for free, I'm making them with my creativity. I put hours every single day, almost 12 hours a day now, which has shrunk, by the way, into creating these videos for free, and I put them up on YouTube for free, and I offer them for free, and more than half the people who watch them actually use ad blocks, so they're literally getting them not even for the price of their attention, and literally not even giving me anything back for it. And why would I be upset? Why would I feel that this person leaving comments furious I haven't done a Cloud Sagas deserves that fury directed at me? Why would I accept that? If you come from a place with no personal boundaries and thinking that you should make everybody happy, you do feel like you deserve that anger. You let them down. Good people don't let other people down. So that's the personal boundaries thing. And I don't tell the next stories with personal boundaries and how messed up things can become as a YouTuber, and when you get the vast numbers of people coming at you with all these requests for drama's sake. But I do want to just say two things. The third one broke my heart this summer to smithereens, and actually I really am grateful in the end, because yeah, I disappointed some people who meant a lot to me, and it happened in such a cataclysmic, chaotic way this summer among people of our community that you can actually see it. It's like an earthquake break in everything, and in me, in the pictures of what I was doing, you can see this earthquake break in my life, where my heart broke so much that when it finally came back together, it didn't fit in the right shape again. But I'm actually grateful that happened. I'm actually grateful that I disappointed a lot of core people in our community by accident and by chaos and by not noticing things ahead of time, because it let me get to where I am now and realize that something had to change. If I could disappoint people at the drop of a hat like that, just by not creating something a specific way, and my whole life felt like it broke and my heart broke over it, over that, like receiving all of the disappointment from them, something had to change. So that was actually the third and last thing. But to give you some insight into what it's like, it's not just comments that you get. It's not just comments that happen on your videos. It's not just fan mail written in bold red ink in capital letters. It's not just emails. It's also like the two things that I think pushed me hardest into my burnout, because I didn't have personal boundaries to deal with them, was one, when my uncle died. My uncle died, and I was getting ready for his funeral, and my phone kept buzzing nonstop. I had to buy some emergency tickets from my emergency fund. I had to fly out. I had to drive for hours to get into the city. I had been spreading out the dress that I was going to wear at the funeral and trying to smooth out the wrinkles from throwing it in my bag and rushing to this funeral of my uncle, who was only 40. That's 10 years older than I am right now. He was very young, and it was a tragic accident that he died in. And my phone was buzzing non-stop with DMs from a longtime viewer who is sending me Twitter messages, Twitter DMs. And I explained, like, I'm at a funeral, I can't talk right now, I'm sorry, I need to keep my phone free, I need to be able to message people about this. And he was a longtime viewer of like 2.5 years or so, who had messaged about like, oh, you helped me so much with my depression in the past. And he kept messaging me again and again. I don't care if you're at a funeral. Where's your niche episode? Where's your niche episode? Like 90 of the messages before I blocked him that day. And I remember feeling so guilty. I remember feeling so crushed. I disappointed him too. When I finally was able to block him, I didn't feel relief. I felt guilt over having to do that, and pragmatic because my phone was dying and I needed to have my phone for the funeral and picking people up. But he sent me all those messages based around this sense of disappointment that I hadn't put a niche episode out on the day I was attending a shocking funeral for my uncle. That's the kind of norm that can happen. The other time that really pushed me deep into feeling like I let everybody down is when I was at the hospital trying to figure out if my mother was dying. And I remember standing in the hospital room and I was trying to console my dad, who thought that his wife of so many years and best friend was dying. And everybody was in shock, nobody knew what was going on. She had been in a coma for 3 days, non-responsive. Is this gonna be the end? And my phone was going absolutely off the hook from a woman on Discord who knew where I was and had promised that she was my friend, and was so hurt that I couldn't take the time to reply to her and talk to her right now. Because we're friends, Seri. You're pulling me out of the darkness I am in, and talking with you inspires me to better my life, and you do so much for me, Seri. Why aren't you replying to my messages? I know you're in the hospital, but you should be talking to me about it. Those are the kind of people that come out of the woodwork and the kind of things that can make you feel like a failure. Now I look at that and all the hairs on the back of my neck raise, and I can see red flags as far as the sea goes. But back then I didn't have the personal boundaries, and that is why I got burned out. Every comment asking where another series was evidence of disappointing someone because I didn't make them happy. And what good was I as a good person if I failed to make someone happy when it seemed like such an easy thing to do? Even if it wasn't. Even if one episode actually takes me up to 3 hours for a short 15-minute episode to prepare behind the scenes, it felt like if I love doing it, then how could I turn anyone down if it makes them happy and my life is so good? So that's all I'm going to say about that, because I went on way longer than I meant to when it comes to personal boundaries and how I got burned out. But that's how I got burned out. That's because I didn't have the boundaries. I didn't have any personal boundaries with people. I didn't feel I could tell anyone no. And I felt like you couldn't be a good person if you didn't do what people asked of you. And I'm sure I'll have more to dissect of that later, but that's where it all came from. I didn't feel like I could tell people I didn't have enough time to chat. I didn't feel like I had a right to turn anybody down, to curate the list of people who I talked to. I didn't feel like I had a right to my time. I didn't have a right to my time to make sure that my laundry was done and I was cooking healthy meals. I didn't have a right to my time to hang out with chips. I didn't have a right to my time to stay off social media if I needed to focus on work or my health or just what I wanted to do, because I thought I needed to make people happy, and there was never enough time in the day to do everything that everyone asked of me. And now I know who I am. I know why I'm here. I know what I want to get out of it. And I know what people should expect of me, and I should expect of them. I have some personal boundaries, and it has changed my life. I thought this might be a short sort of story, but it's not. And I just wanted to say really quickly, if you're wondering why did you not have any personal boundaries to begin with, Seri, I'm still exploring that for myself and trying to figure out where it came from. But I want to remind you guys, I grew up the eldest child of a family where both my parents became disabled when I was very young. My mother has lupus, and the last time I actually saw her walk was when I was 7. By the time I was 12, my father had a spinal condition develop where he could no longer work and he could no longer live day to day without being in excruciating pain. So suddenly, by the time I was 12 to 13 to 14, in that age range, I was the only able-bodied adult in a house where I had younger siblings who had severe autism and needed help. And I had 2 parents, one of whom was so disabled at the time that she couldn't brush her own hair or get a glass of water or walk anymore. When you are part of a family who have those kinds of struggles, the concept of personal boundaries is obliterated, because from a tiny young age, you are helping to raise your siblings, and you are helping to get the most basic things like food and water for a parent who can no longer walk and no longer even physically get from one room to the other every day. So that's why I think I didn't have very good personal boundaries. It's not, I think, a character flaw. I'm not that hard on myself. I think it's just a result of having grown up in a household where I had to take on very, very personal roles in the lives of multiple people who were no longer able to do a lot of physical care or emotional care for themselves, or who took a lot longer to develop emotional control and emotional regulation. So I had to outthink, like, what could I do to be responsible for this situation from a very, very, very young age. And you don't do it with any bitterness either. There is a lot of love there, and I think that the level of self-sacrifice needed to take care of a family where you have both physical and learning disabilities present in multiple people is really something I look back on now, and I wish we had had more help. I really wish we had had more help. I wish the young little girl me had had more help, and my dad and mom and brothers and sister and everybody had had more help, but we didn't. And it was hard, and we fought a lot, because you have to be in charge of people in a way that makes both you and them uncomfortable. But that's why I don't think there were personal boundaries that I understood from a young age. And that's why I think it took me until now in my 30s, with a job that I love but was destroying me, to start developing them. The uniqueness of growing up in a family like that is not something I'll ever regret, because I think it has helped me become a more compassionate and good person. And it has helped me not take a lot for granted. When, you know, my mom can't walk anymore or breathe well, when I could take a deep breath on a hike, I never do it without feeling grateful that I can walk, grateful that my lungs work so well, because my mom can't do those things. So I do think that there's definitely, it's not a life I regret, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not angry at myself for not having personal boundaries, but I wish somebody had clued me in to what it feels like to have them and what's reasonable a lot earlier. But that's also why I don't think I had them. And I think that that might be something a lot of people would find frustrating. Why didn't you have these earlier? Or maybe confusing. Why didn't you have any personal boundaries? I wouldn't have put up with that. I didn't come from a place, a culture, a family where that was the norm. I had to learn somehow. So I'm not going to be hard on myself for taking so long to get here. And I talked in depth about it so much with the hopes that maybe it'll clue anybody else missing them in a lot earlier. So that's all I want to talk about for that today, by far. It was way more talking than I meant to do. But I needed to do this before I could get into the fun stuff. I needed to do this before I could say, and I'm coming out of it. And it feels really good. Because until now, I felt too guilty to share the happier things in my life, and that guilt would weigh down the happy things until they drowned under the sea of guilt. Because I thought my life should be geared towards making other people happy, and how could I be happy if I was failing at that? And now I have my happy little box. I live inside this box. It's a great place. I take care of myself. I take care of my loved ones. I reach out to my friends, and if anyone tries to jump inside my box with me, I'm going to gently scooch them back out, because we all need our own boxes. And I know that from having been in those dark places, is that nobody got me out of them except myself. And that's the lesson I think all of us need to learn at some point. But that's that, yeah. Burned out, not because I worked too much in terms of hours per se. I mean, that happened, but that's not why I burned out. Not because YouTube gives you completely uncontrollable results. I accept that as part of the risk of this, just like I accept ad block as part of the risk and everything else. And not for any of those things, not for the money, not for the fame, not for any of the other reasons people seem to talk about burnout, but because I wanted to be a good person, and because I was trying to fulfill what I thought that meant. That's why I burned out. In my personal boundaries box, I know what I have left over after taking care of myself to offer, and now I know that's the extra to offer the world. That's the extra to create something with, to give people. I don't owe anybody videos. I do this for free. I upload it for free. I produce them for free. They take hours out of my time. If it's not a series somebody wants and I don't feel like playing it, it may not happen. And I shouldn't feel guilty about that. And I'm finally there. I'm finally there. I'll talk more about that later too, because that's a whole nother kettle of fish, as I like to say. But for those of you who are burned out and also looking for more clarity and details, the three big things that I wanted to talk about today, with the biggest one clearly being personal boundaries, which I think is actually at the heart of all burnout. Truly, I don't think it's overwork. I think it's personal boundaries, because if you have personal boundaries, you most likely aren't going to overwork. But I think personal boundaries is the biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing. And number two is that I was not organized enough for how many projects I have. And that caused me to become completely exhausted all the time. I couldn't keep up with all of my projects, and I couldn't keep up with all my plots, and I couldn't keep up with all the requests and all the ideas because they were all trying to stay in my head. I now organize everything thoroughly and meticulously in a bunch of Evernote files, and it has also changed my life in the last 2 months. I am happier and more productive, more organized, and able to tackle more complex projects in the last 2 months thanks to being properly organized than I ever have been before. I'm going to completely talk about that in a different day, because that's how significantly it has changed my life. And I do feel not being organized enough and not taking care of myself, the routines of my home, keeping things clean, keeping myself clean, getting good food, that definitely contributed to my burnout too. And the third big thing is that I was being a perfectionist. And that letting go of being a perfectionist is the biggest final key to having slipped out of the pit. And that was the final rope out, I think, is when I accidentally saw a book on Amazon. And I love how often the books on Amazon do end up changing my life. But I accidentally saw a book on Amazon called Overcoming Perfection. And it is written by Ann W. Smith, Finding the Key to Balance and Self-Acceptance. And I tried it out, just on a whim. I have been called a perfectionist in the past. I may not have noticed that I was one until recently. I am what you would call a covert perfectionist, I think. But I read that book, Overcoming Perfection, and was finally able to let go of trying to be perfect. finally able to let go of trying to make everyone happy. Finally able to let go of the pain that came when I would disappoint someone, because you just can't do it all. And that ability to let go for the first time in my life of trying to be perfect was the final key to climb out of the pit. And I think that that too is something that if you are struggling with burnout, you need to hear, is that you need to find the place where in a healthy, happy way, you can let go. And that ironically, I think, is going to get you up out of the darkness because everything won't seem as intense anymore. So yeah, and also I recommend, if you are a perfectionist, you've always kind of laughed about it, but it actually is disturbing some things in your life, to read this book, because Anne Smith does talk about the fact that perfectionism is not a negative personality trait, it's an adaptive survival trait. Usually if you grew up in a family or a atmosphere that had some level of disturbed layering to it, a disturbed foundation of some kind, like maybe growing up with 2 disabled parents and that kind of stress, and wondering if you get to eat the next week because neither of your parents can work because they're both in extreme excruciating pain and their medicine costs $14,100 a month. Yeah, she talks about how perfectionism is actually a survival trait for if you grow up in environments similar to that. And it is a good thing, it's adaptive, it can get you through those kinds of situations. But when you become an adult, often perfectionism turns in on itself and becomes maladaptive. It is no longer a healthy or successful trait to have in your life. I highly recommend overcoming perfectionism as well. So those are the things I wanted to mention. I have come out of my burnout. I can finally start showing you guys happy things in my life without feeling like I should be really guilty because, oh, I mean, it was to the point where I would put up a vlog of having a nice day and I would just get comments of, "Where is WolfQuest?" And now I can see that from inside my box and go, "Don't know, it's not right here." And kind of play with it and not be as upset and just let it go, because I do this for free. And so why do I rip myself apart over it? Nobody is paying me for these episodes. Half of the people who watch aren't even letting the ads roll by. So I just need to let go of taking it so serious, right? And that means also understanding the personal boundary of the people who come at me and say they're lost in the dark, and being able to offer them links to the resources and understand that it's okay that it's not my place to go any further with that, or to be responsible for having a friendship and a personal relationship with every single person who wants one with me. That's hard too, and something I'll talk about with parasocial relationships in the future and being a YouTuber. But that all has folded into the gigantic, huge, hour-long Seri ramble of overcoming burnout. It's been a long journey. I can see color again. I'm happy. I get to share the things I'm happy about. I am actually, ironically, more productive than I have ever been. And I can experiment with things now. I don't have to be perfect at all of it. And life's great. Life's really great. And I'll tell you guys more all about it in future, much shorter vlogs where I'll just kind of mention snippets of it here and there, because that's what I want to do. My goal now is to carry on being healthy and happy and having personal boundaries. I actually have a really great working time now. I'm not actually overworking every day. I'm working just enough. I have a set number of hours I work and then I'm done. And I'm spending time with Chips. I'm reading books. I have finished 4 books. It's only November 9th and I have finished 4 books this month. Oh my gosh, I don't remember the last time I was able to read that much. It's so exciting. I feel it. I feel the joy again, and that means I'm finally starting to turn to my work and look at it with a joyful heart again and be able to go, let's put some authentic me into what I'm about to do here. And I'm not rushing myself about it. So there's a lot of good stuff, and it all comes from coming up out of burnout and all the things I mentioned, and I want to share more with you guys. I actually really want to turn to my vlog channel as an outlet for me as a person. I'll talk more about that later, because I do feel like leaving my videos behind is sort of my legacy. It's how I want to try to leave the active color, the light, the moment, the living moment of my life for prosperity. So I do take the vlogs kind of seriously, but no pun intended. Which totally ruins being serious. But basically what I'm trying to say is I want to do more vlogging, and now I think I can, because I won't feel so guilty about it, and I won't have pressure on myself to make it be anything other than what I want it to be, and that's enough. And yeah, we'll talk about plans for the future later. I think I've mentioned enough now, and I really hope maybe I could help somebody, or at least give you guys food for thought. And I'll chop that food for thought up in the future, because I do want to make it more accessible. Not because I think this video is too long. It can be whatever I want. These are my vlogs and my vlog channel. That's my freeform space. I can do whatever I want there. But I want it to be more accessible to people, to help as many people as possible. So if you think there was a specific thing that leapt out at you, if you could let me know in the comments, that's going to help me to, in the future, try to compile much shorter snippets that can really maybe deliver a key to somebody about how to come up out of that darkness. So thank you guys. Thank you and welcome. I feel alive again, and I'm going to share the journey with all of you. So I'll see you next time.